Hello, and welcome to our monthly webinar series. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Greg Belknap, and today we're going to do a full product overview on Zoho Recruit. Now, we have a lot of topics to cover today, so I'd like to start by giving you an outline of what I'll be covering. If you're looking for information on a specific topic, feel free to jump to that part of the video. We'll start with a brief overview on Zoho Recruit's purpose and use within the Zoho ecosystem. Then we'll discuss how you can initially set up your account, as well as how to navigate through the app. Then we'll start looking at its features, such as talent sourcing, candidate management, customization automation, and extensions and integrations, compliance and security. Like I said, it's a lot of stuff, so let's jump right into it. Zoho Recruit is an applicant tracking system, or ATS, built to help you find, filter, and hire candidates for positions, either at your organization or an organization that you represent. You can store a candidate's information like education or work history, as well as any communications between you and the applicant. You can schedule interviews, create pre-screening assessments, and set up automations to reduce manual data entry. Zoho Recruit's goal is to consolidate all the necessary tools for talent acquisition and facilitate communication and collaboration between all the stakeholders involved. Now that you have a better idea of what Zoho Recruit is for, let's get your account set up. If you are a Zoho One user, you'll add Recruit to your account by going to your Zoho admin dashboard, found by going to the settings when you go to one.zoho.com. Then under here, you'll find applications, and to add an application, come over and click Add Application. Here, if you don't see Zoho Recruit as one of the options here, you'll come up to the little magnifying glass and you can search for it there. Now, I already have Recruit added to my account, so we don't have to add it now. If you are not a Zoho One user, then you could simply go to recruit.zoho.com and follow the individual sign-up process for your organization. Now, when it comes to actually setting up your account and your organization for the first time, I could take you through all the steps, but fortunately, Zoho has done a lot of the heavy lifting here for both of us in something that they call the onboarding wizard. So in the upper section, you'll see this little rocket ship icon. If you click on that, this brings you to the onboarding wizard page, wherein this will guide you through the entire basic setup, such as company profile verification, inviting users, migrating data if you have been using a previous ATS, linking your email, connecting your calendar, starting your career site, as well as introducing advanced setup like workflows, hiring pipeline, resume inbox, module layout, and customizing profiles. They also have links here for additional resources like the Help Center. If you are a coder or a developer, there is the API guide here. And then they also have a video library with how-to videos on each of these topics, as well as a few others. So if you want, I recommend following this basic setup, really get the ball rolling. Now, let's take a look at how to navigate through Zoho Recruit. If you've used Zoho CRM, you'll probably notice a lot of similarities in the structure between Zoho Recruit and Zoho CRM, namely that the app is divided up into modules. These modules are segments that hold the different kinds of records that your organization can use. In the CRM, for example, you have contacts, deals, invoices, etc. In Recruit, you have the same basic structure, except obviously the modules used for the recruitment process are different from those used in the sales process. So we have modules like job openings, interviews, referrals. You can find additional modules by clicking on the three dots here under Other Modules, and you have all of the default modules that are put in place when you first campaigns, the marketplace, analytics, etc. You can also create custom modules if you want to further customize and tailor your Recruit experience, which we'll talk about a little bit later. If you decide that there are some particular departments or that you don't need to use, you can always hide certain modules by going to the settings under customization, clicking on modules, and just like in the CRM, click on organize modules, and you can choose to hide entire tabs and modules from your organization. Now, if you do want to use most of the modules, but you know that depending on somebody's role, they won't need to see every module all the time, we also have, just like in the CRM, tab groups. Tab groups are how you can group certain modules together in commonly associated groups. You do that by clicking on the little hamburger menu here next to Home. And by default, if there are no tag groups, you don't see anything here, but you can always create, say you're a hiring manager, and you can set certain profiles to see certain tab groups. We'll call this hiring. Let's say that your hiring manager needs to obviously see the job openings and the candidates and the interviews, but they don't necessarily need to see referrals, departments, campaigns, analytics, and assessments, etc. So we'll go ahead and click Save. And now, if I come back here to the tab group, I have the hiring group tab group. So I can select this tab group. Now, all I could see are the tabs that I selected in my tab group of job openings, candidates, and interviews. And of course, the home option will always be available. If there are any other modules that can't fit up here in this list, then they will, like before, show up under these three dots. Finally, you have your other menu options, such as the Create menu, to quick create something in a module, like a job opening or an interview or a candidate. You have your search bar, where you can perform module-specific searches or a global search. We've already discussed the onboarding wizard. You have your notifications, a link to your calendar, also links to what's new in Zoho Recruit, and then, of course, the settings indicated by the gear icon. Inside of each individual module, again, similar to the CRM, the first thing you see is the list view. In this list view, we'll have a series of records stacked one on top of another. You can click onto any one of these records to see the detail view and see individual fields for those records. If you want to group certain records together, you can do so by using either a custom view or quick filters. A custom view, such as here we have all job openings is the default view. They have a few built-in common views, such as hot job openings, my job openings, open job openings, but you can create a custom view if there are certain criteria that you can define that would apply directly to yourself or to another user if you're creating a view for them. Here you select criteria by selecting a particular field, say the city, and then deciding the comparator that you're going to be using is, isn't, contains, doesn't contain, and then a value. You can have additional criteria and grouping them in a mixture of and or operators, which you can edit down here under criteria pattern. And then you can also decide what fields you want visible in that list quick view. You can also choose to share that custom view with everyone in your organization or only selected users, but you can always keep it private if it's a particular view that really only applies to yourself. Beyond custom views, we also have quick filters. Quick filters, these are for more on-the-fly filtering that you need to do. A custom view, if you can set some pretty strict rules, you can filter that way. And then if you need to sort of drill down deeper, that's what you would use these quick filters for. Where, for example, I could check the box for posting title and say the posting title should contain a certain string or shouldn't contain a certain string, or look for things where the posting title is empty. You can select multiple quick filters. The benefits of using the quick filters, there are some quick filters that you can't create a custom view for, such as some summary fields like number of associated candidates or whether or not there are any notes. On the list view, you also have options for creating a record, importing new records, as well as the Zoho Sheet view if you want to be able to edit several records at once with some quick changes, and then you can always print out a report version of the list. Within each record, we have our detail view, where in the detail view, we have our business cards up at the top. These are some built-in widgets by Zoho. And then you have the option to show the details for a particular record. Here, you'll see all the different fields that contain information pertaining to whatever module this is. In this case, we're looking at a job opening. Then below these details, we have the related lists, which you can also see listed over here on the left. These are child records of this particular module, whatever you're looking at. So here we have, by default, every single module is going to have notes and attachments, and then you'll have any related list particular to that module. In this case, we have shared vendors, offer letters, interviews, etc. You can also establish particular tags for a record, or you can also create dynamic links associated to records. For example, you had a field on the job opening for an ID for that job opening, and you've built your website in a way that the landing page for this job opening follows a URL pattern and then that job posting ID number. You could create a link that uses a merge tag to pull in this opening ID number to generate a dynamic URL that would appear now on every record in the module so that you could quickly and easily access the landing page for these job postings. A really nice feature in Zoho Recruit that doesn't exist in CRM is you have this hide empty fields option, where if you click on that, then anything that's not filled in, it will simply not show you. That way you don't have to scroll through a bunch of empty fields to be able to see the information that really matters most. All right, now that you have a sense of how to navigate the app, let's talk about talent sourcing. There are several different ways to talent source within Zoho Recruit. I don't have time to go through all of them today, so I want to talk about two of the most important ones. One is integrating with third-party providers, and the other is by posting on your own website. So first, let's talk about integrating with existing databases. You have a job board hub in your settings where you can choose to use source boosters with a lot of well-established recruiting databases, or posting directly to job boards. The source booster is an option here that allows you to tap directly into a particular recruiting company's database, such as very popular, of course, Monster or Career Builder or Next, where you don't have to wait for a candidate to apply to your position. You can look at their database and directly reach out to candidates that match your ideal recruitment profile. Outside of job boosters, aside from the source boosters, you can also post to job boards within many more job posting websites, such as Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn. There are a number of both paid and free job boards that you can use, using ones that obviously match with regions that you want to be able to pull from, as well as those that candidates that you would be looking for would be more likely to look for job postings. Of course, in addition to using these third parties to promote your job openings, you can also post them on your own website using the career website. The career site builder allows you to create postings that you can divide into different job types, such as full-time or part-time, as well as defining which country these different positions are available for. You can set up all of your company's personal branding on the website, including your own domain or subdomain. Also creating a unique web address for your career page that will create forms that will be able to feed directly into your Zoho Recruit. In fact, that is how we usually recruit here at Zenatta. So if you go to zenatta.com and under our About section, you can go to Join the Team, And so you'll notice that the URL is now zenatta.zohorecruit.com. And this page was built by none other than the Zoho Recruit career page builder. And here we have all of our current openings. You can filter for remote jobs. And these postings allow a user to easily click on one of your postings, see the job description, any relevant details, and allow them to make themselves an applicant. Now, of course, some other means of talent sourcing that you could look into are a resume inbox, where you post an email address for people to send their resumes to, and you can create a resume parser to sort of act as a web form, though we recommend using things like the portal or the career website because it's just much more reliable at getting that data entered correctly the first time than having the resume parser maybe get it right, maybe not get it right, and then you end up having to either chase them down for details, or more likely, you'll simply miss out on a potentially great candidate as a result. With that, let's move on to candidate management. The first thing that I want to go over in terms of candidate management is assessments. Assessments are a way for you to help add some objective truth to your recruitment process and allow you to do screening of any potential candidates to make sure that you're spending the efforts interviewing and meeting only with the best of the best. So you do that through the assessments module. So each of these assessments is a template for a questionnaire that either your interviewers could use or that your candidates could fill out themselves when applying for the job, or perhaps as a prerequisite for a round 2 or 3 interview. So in these assessments, you can create questions for either a pre-screening candidate assessment, something for a recruiter to fill in on a candidate's behalf, or something for an interviewer to evaluate a candidate during an interview. Let's start with a candidate assessment. A candidate assessment is very simple, containing a assessment name, the type of assessment this is, a brief description. The way the questions are organized is you create sections of questions based around a certain competency. For example, you may have a section based around somebody's technical expertise versus a competency set of questions about their problem-solving skills or their leadership capabilities, that sort of thing. And in here, you can fill in the questions with either subjective or objective answers. You can ask for an open response, either in a single line or a paragraph, or create a multiple choice in the form of a radio button, a multi-select if you have more than one option they could pick, a drop-down, which is like a radio, or a simple yes-no checkbox. You can also mandate certain questions, make others optional, and offer hints if you think that your candidates need a little bit of guidance in what kind of things you're looking for in an answer. If you've made a competency in another assessment before, you can always clone a competency from one assessment to another to help streamline your own processes. A recruiter's assessment is similar to a candidate assessment. However, one big difference is that the recruiter's assessment only allows for the open-ended questions, not the multiple choice. Because again, this would be a list of questions that a recruiter is asking to a candidate, and they will be filling this out on their computer, iPad, whatever it's going to be. Finally, you have the interviewer assessment, which, like the recruiter assessment, doesn't allow for multiple choice questions, only for open-ended ones. The interviewer assessment does have the addition of asking for a rating, either a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a star rating of 1 to 5 stars, where your interviewers that are completing this assessment during an interview of a candidate, they'll give a thumb or star rating for each competency that is listed on your assessment. Now let's talk about interviews. After you've done all of your pre-screening, You can create an interview with a particular candidate. You can choose to schedule a new interview, log an interview that you have already completed, as well as creating a video interview if you integrate your system with a video feature like Zoom. If I were to select a formal interview, here I would fill out all of my standard interview information, and you'll notice over here you have the option of selecting an assessment. You're going to want to include this in any interview that you do, because this will allow you to keep consistent in the way that you evaluate your candidates so that you can make the most informed decision about who you should bring onto your team. Another easy option that we tend to use most often here at Zenatta is conducting an interview at our own pace and simply logging it after the fact, selecting an assessment that we want to base the interview on, and then fill out the information for the interview, and then answering the competency questions here on the right-hand side. You'll be prompted to provide an overall recommendation and any additional comments. If you select for a hired position or a rejected position, you will also be prompted to whether or not you would like to change the candidate's status as well, as opposed to simply making your recommendation. You, of course, don't have to. You can uncheck this box so that all you're doing is just leaving a set of comments. Otherwise, if you want to, you can choose to hire and lock down the candidate. And when you are finished, you can click on Submit. You can also check on the status of any particular candidate by going to the list of candidates and seeing all the list of candidates here, paying attention to the candidate status so you can see which recruits have already been labeled as hired for what position, as well as those that still have to go through your pipeline. You can see their ratings based on all of their evaluations, assessments, interviews at a glance there. You can also click on Quick View if you want to bring up a pop-up of some key information about the recruit without having to go directly into their record. Now that we have a good idea of how our candidates are handled inside of the system, let's talk customization and automations. Just like in the CRM, our customization options are found in the Setup menu under, appropriately enough, Customization. To start off, we could take a look at the modules and see that we can edit many of the existing modules. We can also create our own custom modules. For now, let's take a look at some of the existing modules. Inside of, say, job openings, you can edit the layout, the order of fields, create new custom fields. You can also map dependency fields. That's when, based on a value in one field, it would limit the pick list options in a pick list field. You can also create layout rules and validation rules. Then for candidates, similar to the leads module in the CRM, you have this convert candidate mapping option that you can select, where if you convert a candidate into a contact, this is where you can set up the mappings between the candidates module and the contacts module. One of the other really important settings that you'll want to take a look at under customization is your hiring pipeline. This is where you set up your stages that represent your hiring process, from screening all the way to hiring and anything in between. Here you can add up to 10 stages, as well as setting up the order in which they should appear, and then you select a certain color for a stage, as will be displayed in various dashboards on both the candidates module as well as the home page. In the hiring pipeline, you have the stages, as I mentioned here: screening, submissions, interview, hired. Then within those stages, you have various statuses. You can kind of think of them as sub-stages. So for example, in the screening stage of the hiring pipeline, I have statuses for a new candidate, waiting for evaluation, should be contacted in the future, qualified, rejected, etc. Down in hired, I can say whether or not they are hired, joined, a no-show, converted employee, forward to onboarding. You get the idea. Down here under others, you can see any statuses that haven't yet been mapped to a particular stage. And you can click this map status to see right now I have a status called converted temp that I would need to assign to a particular stage. So I will put this under, and now I have 0 unmapped. Now let's talk automations. Again, very similar to the CRM, your automations can be triggered based on a record action or a date field. This could be one field being updated in a particular way, or any edit on a record could also trigger a workflow rule. Like in the CRM, you have to select which module this workflow rule is going to be associated to. And then once you decide the particular module, you decide the trigger. For example, this workflow is executed on the record action of a candidate applying for a job. This rule doesn't have any additional criteria, but you could add more criteria. And then below you have whatever actions this workflow rule will trigger. Right now, this one is triggering an email alert, but you could also trigger a task being created, a field on the record that it's triggering the workflow to be updated. You can send a webhook out to another system such as Zoho Flow or even Zoho Books. You can also trigger a custom function that you write yourself using Deluge, and you can add or remove tags. In addition to instant actions, you can also do all those same kinds of actions under scheduled actions using a certain delay in as little as 10 minutes all the way up to 36 days or however many more. I actually don't know what the upper limit is on those. Haven't found it. But just like over on the instant actions, you can send emails, create tasks, do a field update, execute a webhook, or execute a function. The one thing you can't do on a schedule is adding or removing tags. If you want to do that, you will have to do it as an instant. On any of these workflow rules, you can take a look at a more detailed view of any of the actions by going to this actions section under automation. Here I can see all of the email alerts that exist in my system, as well as any task creation actions, any field update actions, any currently set webhooks, and any custom functions that I have in my system. In addition to workflow rules, you can also create blueprints where your organization's process will be very strictly laid out, and any records that meet the criteria to start in a blueprint will stay in that blueprint and only move through specific hiring stages and statuses according to rules that you lay out in your blueprint design. You can also set up approvals for any particular record, not just a candidate being approved or not approved, but even a particular interview being approved or not approved as acceptable to keep in the system. And then finally, you can set up scheduled functions. Just like the CRM, these schedules you could either have them run continuously every X number of hours or X number of days, or you can set them to run on specific date. You can also set them to only run for a certain amount of time or for a certain number of execution. Obviously, your imagination is the limit when it comes to these automations. You can, for example, set up an automation where when a candidate is moved to the hired, that any relevant onboarding documents could be automatically forwarded onto that candidate, as well as, of course, a congratulatory email letting them know that they have booked the position. Now that we've got customization automation under our belts, let's talk about some extensions and integrations. Obviously, in particular, you want to be able to integrate Zoho Recruit with other Zoho apps. This is particularly useful to set up with Zoho campaigns to send out any recruitment efforts, as well as Zoho People if you're using that as your HR tool. I prefer to use Zoho Analytics to the built-in analytics reporting for Recruit. You also have Zoho Survey if you wanted to gauge how your recruitment process is being received by applicants that you both accept and possibly reject. Zoho Forms if you wanted to replace the existing web forms in your application page with some custom forms. And then you can store files brought in from candidates into Zoho Work Drive, You can also set up Zoho Click so that notifications can be sent to yourself and other users when new candidates arrive or a job posting has now been marked as closed, etc. In addition, you have integrations for both Google and Microsoft, particularly for combining your calendar and mapping your email. There is a Zoho Recruit for Gmail add-on that lets you add new candidates and contacts from your Gmail inbox directly into Zoho Recruit. If you are a Microsoft 365 user, you can sync your Zoho Recruit account with your Outlook account and a two-way sync for both your calendar and your contact. Also, if you are using a particular system that requires you to use Zapier, you can also set up a Zapier integration. We prefer to stay in Zoho and use something like Zoho Flow if we can. The only time we want to move to Zapier, which gets a little cost prohibitive as time goes on, is if Zapier has an integration with an application that you have that Zoho Flow just doesn't have, well, then this is the lesser of two evils, as it were. Zoho Recruit has this option if you do, in fact, need to use it. Of course, like any other Zoho app, there is an extensive marketplace with lots and lots of extensions to improve the functionality of your recruit system. These include Calendly for those if you want to allow candidates to book interviews on their most convenient schedule, or setting up SMS or telephony options. Background checks, another big thing, as well as your HR tools like Bamboo HR, Zoho People, etc. Again, I don't have time to go through all of these because there are so many, but definitely worth taking a look at here. If you feel like Zoho Recruit is missing a feature that you want, check the marketplace because there may be somebody that's already had that same question and problem and built a solution that can get you that additional feature that you need. All right, now one of the last things that I want to talk about is also arguably one of the more important aspects to Zoho Recruit, and that's its ability to help you stay compliant to various hiring regulations around the world. Now, Recruit can't do absolutely everything for you. Ultimately, it is the user's responsibility to make sure that they are staying compliant with all local hiring standards and practices and laws. But Zoho Recruit does have a number of tools to make that job that much easier for you. You can find the compliance and security settings under Setup, and then underneath here we have tools for staying GDPR compliant. This is a tool for how you handle, manage, and process your candidate's personal data. It includes setting up consent forms, establishing your privacy notices, as well as which modules you actually need to enable this for, and how long to hold on to data before you can allow it to be deleted. So very important to review this in connection with whatever your local government's hiring regulations are. In addition, you have, if you use Daxtra, so Daxtra is a sub-processor that Zoho Recruit uses if you're using the resume extractor or the resume parser. Zoho is outsourcing the actual computation job of that to a company called Daxtra. This page is more of a PSA if you need to disclose to any agency or anything like that any sub-processor that your software is using. Zoho also wants to help, for those in the US, the equal employment opportunity compliance. This helps with preventing discrimination in hiring processes against race, ethnicity, religion, sex, etc., etc. You also have OFCCP compliance. This is very similar to equal opportunity, or it's connected to equal opportunity, but it also combines the elements of the Section 503 Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as well as the VEVRA Act. All of these things are made so that if your company were to ever get audited, by the US government at least, that you would be in compliance with this standard. And finally, one last one would be HIPAA compliance, one that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. You can, like in other Zoho apps, set up that certain data points within your system receive an extra layer of encryption to ensure that any personal health data involved in your hiring process is restricted or can't be accessed via API or transferred to a Zoho app. You can set up individual settings here to say, for example, if you need that data to go into a creator app or it needs to go into Zoho People, something like that, you can set those settings here and restrict it to only being allowed transfer between certain apps or third-party apps, or whether or not that should be accessible via API. So a lot of nitty-gritty stuff in here. All of this stuff depends on where your business is located, whether or not you are subject to US laws or some other government agency. Again, ultimately, your responsibility to make sure that you are fully compliant. These tools are simply here to help you reach that compliance. You'll still want somebody to run a verification of your system, someone who is an expert, a legal department, to actually look over your system and make sure that it does fall under all of your required compliance standards. All right, so let's wrap things up with an overall summary. In conclusion, Zoho Recruit is an excellent tool for helping your hiring process. We use it internally here at Zenatta. It's nice to be able to keep candidates in one big library that if we are ready to start up another hiring season, we already have a pool of candidates that maybe we've interviewed previously but didn't have the bandwidth to hire at a particular point in time. It's also really nice that we can create these assessments and, screening tools to keep our hiring process consistent, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of everything because we can set up, certain questions that we ask every candidate. We also have automations to set up automatic emails going out when after we log an interview that we had with somebody, automatically it sends an email to that person telling them what the next steps are, whether or not, depending on what status we put that candidate in, of letting them know either that they are going to have another interview or that unfortunately we're not looking to hire them at this time, or that, hey, congratulations, welcome to the team. Some drawbacks of Zoho Recruit. In my opinion, this is obviously a little biased because of my position as a developer, but the deluge environment in Zoho Recruit is severely lacking. All of the functionality is technically there, but there's a couple of really frustrating things about the way that you deluge code to work with Recruit. For one, if you're writing your script inside of Recruit, the editing window, at least as of today, it's really small and kind of long and just like a few lines long, where obviously a lot of times you end up writing code that's, several, dozens of lines, even if it's a relatively simple code. And then what's worse is that the debugging console window for it puts the entire, not only return statement, but any info logs that you include in your code all as one giant single line, as opposed to like in other Zoho apps where it kind of shows it in like a paragraph or sentence by sentence. It makes it that much harder to code in here. Ultimately, most frustrating part is that Recruit doesn't seem to follow the same kind of standards as other Zoho apps do when it comes to working with JSON or, JavaScript object notation inside of Deluge. For example, if you are trying to pull data from a Zoho Recruit record, then the API name for, let's say, a candidate's name is going to be one thing. But then if you want to update that same field, you have to pass in a different API name than the API name you use to that field. Very bizarre and doesn't really line up with, certainly not the rest of the world, but even within the Zoho sphere, that's a really just odd quirk. So I would say that it's sort of the good and the bad of it is that there are a lot of great tools that come straight out of the box with Zoho Recruit. If you need additional tools on top of what Zoho Recruit comes with, I will just say that custom deluge is not going to be an easy road to go down. If you can find a marketplace extension that does the job for you, go for that, because that's going to save you way more headache than trying to work through coding a custom solution yourself. Even we here at Zenatta, we'll do it. I mean, we'll do it if you pay us. Ooh, it's gonna take some time, and there may be some roadblocks that we aren't even able to see until we're actually trying to do it. And turns out Zoho has some kind of blockade there. So again, a great app with a lot of stuff straight out of the box. But if you need stuff more than that, that's where it gets tricky. That's enough of my soapbox. That's going to do it for today's webinar overview of Zoho Recruit. If you found this video helpful or interesting, we would certainly appreciate comments, likes, subscribes. All of that helps out not only our channel, but also gives us feedback for, are these the kind of webinars that you like to see? Do you like these big overviews? Would you like more deep dives into certain features? Let us know in the comments below. What are the tutorials that you most need from us? And we can get to work on them. Also, if you would like to meet with any Zenatta representatives, you can always go to zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting, where you can meet with one of us for a free consultation. You can also go to club.zenatta.com to join our online community, where you can discuss Zoho with other users like yourself, as well as some of the Zenatta staff. If you have a question over there, you might even end up on our YouTube channel, either in the CRM Zen show or on an episode of Azaz, Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. And if you have training needs for some of the other Zoho apps, we do have training courses on currently the CRM, Zoho Projects, and Zoho Desk. Who knows, if this gets enough traction, there could be a Zoho Recruit team training in the future. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.